From the day you were born, they handed you a script you never wrote, but one you've been following without question for years. Today, we tear it apart. From the moment you took your first breath, the world began feeding you information. Not in the form of conscious lessons, but in subtle, almost invisible ways. The tone of your parents' voices, the expressions they made when you did something right or wrong, the rules that were set without explanation, these became the invisible walls of your world. Before you even knew what freedom was, you were already inside a structure built by someone else's values, fears, and beliefs. This isn't about blaming them. It's about seeing clearly that you were born into a system that began shaping you before you had the power to choose. Most people never question this. They live their entire lives carrying the blueprint they were handed at birth, mistaking it for who they truly are. As you grew, the programming intensified. School told you what was important to learn and how to measure your worth. Grades, ranks, gold stars. Media whispered in your ear about what beauty looks like, what success means, and which dreams are realistic. Friends and peers taught you the price of fitting in and the pain of standing out. Every repeated message carved deeper into your mind until it became second nature. And that's the danger. The program is so deeply embedded that you stop seeing it as something separate from you. You think, that's just who I am, but much of who you are may be nothing more than a collection of repeated inputs you never consciously agreed to. The programming is clever because it hides in the everyday. It's in the careers you're told are respectable, the relationships you're expected to value, even the emotions you're allowed to express. Think about it. How often have you stopped yourself from speaking your mind because it wasn't appropriate? How many times have you wanted something but dismissed it instantly because it didn't align with what you thought was possible? That's not you making a rational decision. That's the program protecting itself. It's trained you to self-police, to be your own warden, so you don't even notice the cage you're living in. And here's the most dangerous part. The programming isn't always negative on the surface. Sometimes it wears the mask of kindness, safety, and love. Parents tell you to be realistic because they don't want to see you get hurt. Teachers reward you for following instructions, not for asking difficult questions. Leaders encourage unity but fear independent thinking. The intention may be good, but the effect is the same. You're guided toward the well-lit, paved road and discouraged from wandering into the unknown. But the unknown is where your real life is waiting. The well-lit road may be safe, but it's not yours. It's been walked 1,000,000 times before by people who never stopped to ask if they were on the right path. The first real shift happens when you become aware of the program. When you start to notice the patterns, you gain the power to pause and ask, where did this thought come from? Do I actually believe this, or was I taught to believe it? It's like turning on the lights in a room you've been sitting in for years. You start to see the furniture, the colors, the exits. You realize that some of the rules you've been living by are not universal truths. They're inherited opinions. And once you see them for what they are, they lose their power. They stop being invisible laws and become conscious choices you can either accept or reject. But make no mistake, recognizing the programming can be unsettling. When you first see how much of your identity was shaped without your consent, there's a moment of disorientation. You may feel anger at those who programmed you. You may feel grief for the years you lived under their influence. And you may feel fear because awareness brings responsibility. Once you know the chains exist, you can't unsee them. You have to decide, will you keep wearing them because it's familiar, or will you start the difficult work of breaking them? That decision, made with full awareness, is the first act of true freedom. When you were young, you didn't have the luxury of questioning. You didn't know the difference between truth and opinion. If someone older, louder, or more confident told you something, you accepted it as fact. Work hard, get a stable job, and you'll be happy. Don't aim too high, you'll just be disappointed. People like us don't do things like that. These statements weren't presented as suggestions, they were packaged as reality. And without realizing it, you built your life around them. But here's the truth, just because something was repeated often doesn't make it right. The danger is that many of these beliefs are invisible walls, limits you never chose but now defend as if they're sacred. Think about it. How many opportunities have you ignored because a voice in your head said, "That's not for you"? How many dreams have you downsized because you were taught that dreaming too big is dangerous? These beliefs act like guardrails, keeping you on the narrow road the world paved for you. And most people stay on that road for their entire lives, not because it's the best path, but because they never dared to climb over the rails. Challenging your beliefs isn't about becoming rebellious for the sake of rebellion. It's not about arguing with your parents, rejecting traditions, or discarding everything you've been taught. It's about holding each belief up to the light and asking, does this help me grow? Does this make me stronger, or does this keep me small? If a belief passes that test, keep it. If it doesn't, you have to be willing to let it go, no matter how comfortable it feels or how many people around you still cling to it. Because comfort can be a trap, and familiarity can be the enemy of progress. But here's where it gets difficult. Questioning your beliefs will make people uncomfortable. You'll notice it the moment you stop nodding along to the old scripts. Friends may laugh at you. Family members might try to pull you back to reality. Some will take it personally, as if your change is a rejection of them. This is where you have to be strong enough to stand in the storm. The program doesn't just live in you, it lives in the people around you. When you break free, it forces them to face their own chains, and not everyone is ready for that. The process of challenging your beliefs requires patience. It's like removing bricks from a wall that's been standing your whole life. You don't knock it down in one swing. You take out one brick at a time, examining, testing, and replacing it with something stronger. That failure is bad belief. Replace it with failure is feedback. That security is more important than freedom, belief. Replace it with true security comes from self-reliance. Slowly, the wall changes shape, and one day, you realize you can see the horizon for the first time. And here's the beautiful part. Once you start challenging the beliefs you were given, you unlock the door to create your own. You become the architect of your reality instead of the tenant in someone else's. You start making decisions from a place of choice, not conditioning. You discover that you are allowed to want what you want, even if it doesn't fit the script you were handed, and that's when life starts to feel like it belongs to you again. From the day you first smiled as a baby and someone clapped their hands, you learned something powerful. Approval feels good. And from the day you first made a mistake and someone frowned, you learned something else. Rejection hurts. Over time, these two forces, seeking praise and avoiding disapproval, became the invisible compass guiding your choices. At first, it seemed harmless. You dressed a certain way so your friends would compliment you. You worked harder on a project because your teacher's praise felt like sunlight. But slowly, without realizing it, your life became less about what you wanted and more about what would earn you a nod from others. The approval program runs deep. It whispers in your ear when you're about to speak your mind, "Careful, what will they think?" It stops you from chasing your real dreams because they might make people uncomfortable. It keeps you buying things you don't need, attending events you don't enjoy, and saying yes when you want to say no, just to maintain the image you think others expect. And the worst part, even when you get their approval, it's never enough. The hunger returns almost instantly, and you need another fix. It's a loop with no exit. unless you decide to step out of it. Living for approval is a form of self-betrayal. Every time you make a choice just to be accepted, you're telling yourself, their opinion matters more than my truth. You shrink a little, you lose a little piece of yourself. Over years, that erosion leaves you with a version of you that's unrecognizable, polished on the outside but hollow on the inside. The applause you've been chasing feels meaningless when you realize you've been performing a role in a play you never wanted to be in. Breaking free from this cycle isn't about becoming cold or rejecting everyone's input. It's about shifting your reference point. Instead of asking, will they like this? You ask, will I respect myself for this? Approval is fleeting, self-respect is permanent. And here's the paradox. When you stop living for approval and start living for authenticity, the right people will naturally be drawn to you. You stop attracting relationships built on performance and start building connections based on truth. But prepare yourself. Letting go of approval will cost you. Some people won't like the unfiltered version of you. They'll call you selfish or different. They may distance themselves because you no longer play the role they're used to. And that's okay. Their reaction isn't a sign that you're wrong. It's proof that you're changing. You'll find that losing the wrong people is part of making room for the right ones. And here's the ultimate freedom. Once you stop living for their approval, you also stop fearing their disapproval. You realize that their opinion doesn't change your value. You no longer need to bend, shrink, or twist yourself into shapes to fit their expectations. Your life becomes quieter in some ways, but in that quiet, there's peace. There's the space to hear your own voice again, the voice that was there before the clapping and the frowns ever started. Thinking for yourself sounds simple until you try it. From the moment we're born, most of what we call our thoughts are just echoes of voices we've been surrounded by. Parents, teachers, culture, religion, media, layer upon layer of influence, shaping not just what we think, but how we think. And because those influences arrive so early, they feel like our own. We don't question them because we've never lived outside them. Independent thinking isn't something you're handed, it's something you have to fight for. Here's the truth. The system is designed to keep you thinking within certain lines. It rewards agreement and punishes dissent. You'll be praised for following the right opinions, applauded for repeating what's popular, and quietly shunned if you step too far outside the norm. This isn't just about politics or religion. It's about every corner of life. Fashion, career choices, even your definition of success. Most of it is pre-packaged thought. And when you start thinking for yourself, you'll quickly discover how uncomfortable it makes people. They'll say, don't overthink it. But what they really mean is, don't think differently. Learning to think for yourself means breaking the habit of outsourcing your mind. It's no longer enough to accept headlines at face value, to follow trends because everyone's doing it, or to repeat opinions you've never examined. It means digging deeper, asking who benefits from me believing this. It means reading more than one side of a story, listening to voices that disagree with you, and being willing to hold the tension of uncertainty. It's uncomfortable at first, like waking up in a dark room and stumbling around without the furniture you've memorized, but it's the only way to discover what's genuinely yours. The moment you start thinking for yourself, you become dangerous, not in a reckless way, but in a way that the programmed world can't easily control. You stop buying into every advertisement. You stop reacting to every fear they sell you. You stop chasing every shiny promise they dangle. This is why independent thinkers are rare. They can't be herded like the rest. They might walk with the crowd sometimes, but it's because they choose to, not because they're being led. And that choice makes all the difference. But thinking for yourself also comes with responsibility. It's not enough to break away from the mainstream ideas. You have to replace them with something better. Questioning everything without building a foundation leads to cynicism, not freedom. Real independent thought is grounded in curiosity, humility, and a willingness to be wrong. It's understanding that your mind is a lifelong work in progress, and that changing your perspective when you learn something new isn't weakness, it's strength. And when you truly learn to think for yourself, you discover the rarest kind of confidence. It's not the loud, arrogant confidence that shouts over others. It's the quiet, unshakable kind that comes from knowing your beliefs have been tested, challenged, and chosen by you. You stop clinging to them out of fear and start living them out of conviction. And that's when your life stops being a reflection of someone else's program and starts becoming an expression of your own mind. You can't just delete the old programming and leave your mind empty. Nature hates a vacuum, and if you don't fill that space intentionally, the world will fill it for you. That's why so many people break away from one system only to fall into another. They escape the beliefs they grew up with, but instead of building their own, they adopt a new set from a different crowd, a different ideology, or a different influencer. True freedom doesn't come from breaking the code. It comes from writing your own. Reprogramming your mind is an active process. It starts with being deliberate about what you feed your brain every single day. The conversations you have, the books you read, the videos you watch. These are all lines of code. If you surround yourself with fear, gossip, and negativity, your mind will run on fear, gossip, and negativity. But if you feed it ideas that challenge you, teach you, and expand you, your mental operating system changes. You start seeing possibilities instead of limitations, solutions instead of excuses. And reprogramming isn't just about adding new information. It's about reinforcing it until it becomes your default. You can't watch one inspiring video and expect a lifetime of motivation. You can't read one book and expect a permanent mindset shift. Just like the old programming took years to ingrain itself, your new mental framework needs repetition. Daily habits, affirmations, and intentional learning are how you overwrite the old code. Every time you choose to respond differently than before, you're installing a new function into your system. This process also requires protecting your mental environment. You wouldn't plant seeds in a garden and then dump poison on them, but that's exactly what happens when you fill your mind with positive ideas in the morning and then spend the rest of the day drowning in toxic conversations or doom scrolling online. Reprogramming your mind means setting boundaries, not just with people, but with the content you consume. It's not about being ignorant of the world. It's about refusing to let the world program you by accident. The most powerful way to reprogram your mind is through action. Information without application is just storage. If you want to believe you're confident, you have to start speaking up even when it's uncomfortable. If you want to believe you're disciplined, you have to show up consistently even when motivation fades. Every action is a vote for the identity you're creating. Over time, your behavior teaches your mind a new story about who you are, and eventually, that story becomes reality. When you commit to reprogramming your mind, you stop living reactively and start living intentionally. You no longer wake up each day wondering what the world will throw at you. You wake up deciding how you're going to shape it. Your thoughts stop being random impulses and start becoming tools. And that's when you realize the most powerful chains are mental, but so are the most powerful keys. The final chain that keeps people trapped is blame. It's easy to point to parents, teachers, the government, the economy, or even bad luck, and say, "That's why my life is the way it is." And maybe some of those things truly were unfair. Maybe you really were given a harder starting point than others. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The moment you blame, you hand over your power. You're telling the world, "I can't move forward until they change." and if you wait for them to change, you'll wait forever. Radical responsibility is the decision to own your life entirely, past, present, and future. It doesn't mean you caused every bad thing that happened to you. It means you accept that you are the only one responsible for what happens next. That shift changes everything. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" you start asking, "What can I do now?" You stop waiting for the perfect conditions to begin, and you start creating them. Responsibility takes you out of the passenger seat and puts your hands back on the wheel. Some people mistake responsibility for self-blame, but they're not the same thing. Blame focuses on the past. It keeps you stuck in guilt or resentment. Responsibility focuses on the present. It asks, "What's my next move?" When you take radical responsibility, you stop trying to rewrite history and start writing your future. You can't control what cards you were dealt, but you can control how you play them. And often, the people who win the game of life aren't the ones with the best cards. They're the ones who play their hand with skill, courage, and relentless effort. Radical responsibility also means no more excuses. Excuses feel good in the moment. They protect your ego and keep you safe from discomfort. But in the long run, they become chains. Every time you say, "I can't because," you strengthen the program that tells you you're powerless. Responsibility means you stop looking for reasons why you can't and start looking for strategies that make you able. It means you replace "I wish" with "I will." That shift alone separates the dreamers from the doers. When you fully embrace this mindset, you stop being afraid of failure. You see failure not as proof that you're incapable, but as feedback, a signal telling you what to adjust next time. You stop fearing setbacks because you understand that every step back is part of the forward motion. People who avoid responsibility see failure as the end. People who take responsibility see it as the beginning of the next chapter. That's why they keep going when others quit. And here's the most liberating part. When you take radical responsibility, you no longer have to wait for anyone's permission to change your life. You stop being a victim of the system, of your past, or of other people's choices. You become the author, the director, and the main character of your own story. The chains fall away not because the world changed, but because you did, and once that shift happens, no one can take it away from you. So here we are. You've seen the program for what it is. You've questioned the beliefs you were given. You've stopped living for their approval. You've learned to think for yourself, reprogrammed your mind, and taken full responsibility for your life. And now, there's only one question left. What will you do with this freedom? Because awareness without action changes nothing. Knowing the chains exist isn't enough. You have to break them, and breaking them isn't a one-time event. It's a daily decision. Every morning, you choose whether you'll live by the old code or the one you're writing now. Every choice, every habit, every step is either tightening the chains or shattering them. The world will try to pull you back. It will try to reprogram you. But remember this, no one can chain a mind that refuses to kneel. No one can control a soul that knows it is free. Your life is not a rehearsal. This is the only shot you get. Tear up the script they handed you, write your own story, live it boldly, live it fully, and when they look at you in disbelief, smile, because you know the truth, they no longer control you. You cut the chains, you took back your life.